Esther looks pretty good. I mean, pretty much every content creator has pulled for her, right? So that's got to be saying something. So let's break down her kit and talk about her pros and her cons so that you can decide whether or not you would like to pull for her. So I've set up this video that we can talk about pros and cons. We'll do some unit comparisons. And if you want to skip around to the part that interests you, there are chapters in the video bar and you can just use those directly to skip around the video. So we're going to start by talking about the pros. Now, aside from accuracy, Esther has great stats, like literally across the board, great stats. And we'll talk about the accuracy a little bit later. And then aside from magic, Esther has great resistances, like incredible resistances. They're really, really good and they can get even higher in battle. So she's really set up to actually be built like Thancred is, where you can nullify a resistance and really target somebody in some sort of content like arena where you can pick who you're actually going to be attacking. She's got decent defense penetration. If she hits with her LB, then you're really talking. You might want to supplement it to get up to 60%, but the thing there is, I think her equipment's going to be pretty tight, and again, we're going to talk about that. Now, she has easy access to /resist penetration. It's not actually on her kit, but her sword comes in her bingo board and it has the 30% right there. You get another 35 from her VC, and you should be picking up her VC. Like, we don't even have to do a section of the video on that. It's a really good VC for lightning accounts, even if they don't pull for Esther. So if you're getting Esther, you have to be getting her VC as well, and that's gonna make you nice and set for her /resist penetration. And then she has other things that she can do to increase her damage. So single target imperil /resist imperil on her LB specifically. She's also very bulky besides the resists, besides the amount of defense that she can stack pretty easily. She can restore her own HP. And if she does enough damage, I mean, yeah, you can really restore a lot of HP, especially because her base HP is so high that she's gonna have a bunch going into the battle, and you can then recover a big percentage of that. You can use any HP raising skills to raise by a lot. There's a lot of room to play with that HP level. It's honestly like right below tank level. It's way up there. It's really good. She also has AoE resist on a buff for your team, which is one of my favorite buffs around. Damage type resists, like we said, they're really high. Things like barriers, she has guts, even if it's just one cast. It's everything that you love to see so that a unit can be survivable, and that's kind of one of the most important parts of the game right now, is that every unit that comes out has to have a way of surviving, because if they can just get out there and they're gonna die, then you're really gonna be in trouble, especially with Esther, because her range is not very good. One final bit of utility is the barrier break and the counter chance reduction. Those are really big. I feel like counter chance reduction is something that when I saw it first, I'm like, okay, it's nice, and now I love it. It's my favorite. It's so good, especially against other lightning comps, because you just nullify that reflex. It's just not going to happen. Now, Esther does have some cons, and we do have to talk about her accuracy, because her base accuracy is 157%, and that's not a terrible place to be, but just to give you a reference, we know that Tara has poor accuracy at 150%, but she's fine because she has that 100% hit skill. And Satya also was touted to have poor accuracy, and she's at 159%. So Esther is lower than Satya. However, Esther does have an accuracy buff on her kit, and she does have an accuracy modifier on one of her skills. So that's going to be 60% accuracy if she's using the correct skill and she has her buff active. And there's some problems with that, in that you're not always guaranteed to use that skill, especially at a longer range. And that's where AP is going to be really important, that she has enough of it so that when she closes down an evade unit, she actually can use that skill. The other problem is how long that buff lasts, and also who's one of the main evasion units that we're attacking. It's Locke, and Locke has Dispel Dagger. If Locke is able to use Dispel Dagger on Esther, it's going to be a big deal, because it's going to strip all of her bonus resistances, it's going to strip her accuracy buff, and he can actually break defense. It's going to strip any defense debuff resistance, and he can break defense, he can break slash resistance, and he could actually do some okay damage, except she does still have some pretty high defense. You know, it's not going to be just a straight clowning by by lock, but it is something to keep in mind that she's actually kind of weak in that scenario, and it's something that I'm worried about. The fact that it's only one skill with a 30% accuracy buff and it's such a short range, you have 4 uses. It's good. It's just not what I thought. When they talked about it in the stream, they really made me think that she was going to get accuracy on a passive or a 100% hit attack, and that was not the case. So I definitely think they alluded to more of an accuracy or more of an accurate Esther than what we're actually getting. Now, what's really weird if you come from FFBE is that Esther doesn't have any chaining attacks. Now, that's not always a con that I put on this list, but I'm literally mad thematically that she doesn't have chaining attacks. That makes no sense to me, and I have no idea how could that even possibly make it onto her kit, that she has no chaining attacks. She does have a short range kit. We talked about that. You can use Taunting Blade, but the problem with that is that I don't want her to have hate most of the time, because you're probably going to have magic opponents and you don't want her to get roasted. But at the same time, if you're going against a full physical team, then it's actually kind of cool, especially if you in the future, if you have Resnick and maybe you have Charlotte tanking, and then what's really great is a unit comes in, takes hate off Charlotte, takes some damage themselves, Charlotte can live longer and Resnick has more time to heal. So I really do think Resnick's going to be a great pairing with Esther, especially because Resnick's going to be able to provide an attack buff to Esther that's going to be really, really useful. So otherwise, yeah, I said absolutely roasted by magic on here, and that's actually not even that bad, because you know it's one of her only weaknesses, and that's, you know, they have to have a weakness, but at the same time you can mitigate that. You can actually build a bunch of AoE resist, which is the type of magic she's going to be getting hit by, and you could put something like Fenrir on that has some critical hit rate up, it has a bunch of slash attack up, and it has 20% magic resist, and then all of a sudden you're not actually in that bad shape. I mean, 0 resist isn't that good, or like close to 0 isn't that good, but it gets into a serviceable range. There's certain things that I would be worried about. I would be worried about in guild battle that Elena actually closing a gap and using something like Drain Evocation, even though that's a weaker attack. I feel like that's really gonna hurt Esther, and that's something that you would want to make sure that she's not lined up with Elena on like a guild battle match. One final thing is the low potencies on her kit. I don't think it's a deal breaker, because the crit and the imperils and just like the raw power that she has are going to make up for that. But it is something to note, because someone like Cloud is going to have huge, he's going to have imperils, he's going to have huge modifiers, and he's going to have huge defense penetration and other things on his kit, and even better crit chance. So just something to point out. Speaking of Cloud, we're going to do our unit comparisons, and we're going to use Cloud, and we're also going to use Alstoria. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I think that's who a lot of people would be pulling for, if not for Esther. So we'll see how they stack up, and maybe that will make you help you make a decision. So Esther has pretty high attack compared to a lot of attackers, but it's important to note that she doesn't actually get any attack buffs from passives or active skills. So she would really love to be paired with Cloud for his Soldier's Honor buff, not just for the attack, but for the crit rate, AP restore, and aside from the magic resistance, she really does knock these other units out of the park in terms of her defense and her resistances. I really do think it's pretty incredible. Now, compared to Cloud, I think she's going to do less damage, and the reason is her potencies are smaller, but he actually has more functional defense penetration. He's sitting at 60% plus whatever you've put on him, and you can do that because he has reflex. He also has high crit rate. He has higher crit rate than her, and bonuses to crit damage as well. So even though he's a lot stronger, I am going to take overall survivability over damage any day of the week, but at the same time, they can work great together, especially if you have a tank like Charlotte in the mix. Now, Alstoria is my other comparison, and I think that he's actually very similar to Esther, because he's a bulky attacker with self-healing, with high slash resist. He also has some innate spirit but no innate defense, but Esther beats him like by far on the resistances, by far on the defense stat, but at the end of the day, Alstoria wins in utility. He wins against the evade matchup because his damage is going to be higher. He's got higher potencies, he's got a much better range, he's got greater ability to both gain and to conserve AP, but he's also got the 100% hit attack and a bunch of accuracy. So he really is, against evasion, he's a much better choice. So if you don't like evasion, then maybe Alstoria is the one that you should be saving for. He's also effectively got more defense penetration most of the time because his is tied to a TP skill as well as a passive, and not to a limit burst that's a one-shot thing for one battle, one time. He really is a stronger unit than Esther, in my opinion. Like, straight up, I think he's a stronger unit. But when you're comparing them directly competing in a match against Esther, it's a little bit different because she has an elemental advantage. And that's what's so cool about this game, is that there's room for everybody to find a place and to find a spot in your matchups. But at the end of the day, if you just want to know who's stronger, it's Alstoria. No, like, hands down, it's definitely Alstoria. Before we go, just a little bit of miscellaneous information. There's a really good pull guide on Reddit. It's by user Katai Key, and you should definitely check that out if you're thinking about pulling for Esther. It gives you a bunch of permutations because you can actually grab Esther on the pity on the banner and use the coins to go buy a different global original unit if you really want to get two. Now keep in mind, you have to think about what your future entails, because if you get caught up on getting them, like maybe you just get caught up in the moment and you think, oh, I'm gonna go build like Zazan or Elena or something like that. It's going to be a lot of Vizier. By the time you're done with everything, you might want to even get another VC for them. You would actually use a lot of your Vizier. So don't get caught up in the short term of getting these units. Think about what's that going to cost you and how you're going to be able to handle that on your account. Otherwise, I just wanted to talk about Esther's TMR because I think it's useful against a lot of teams with defense breaks right now. Just keep in mind that defense debuff resistance could be dispelled by lock, for example. But just don't be afraid to put that in somebody else, because something that I didn't talk about with Esther is that she has a lot of TP skills that she would like to have active. Her accuracy, her resistances, her AoE resistance with her barrier, all these things, bells she would like to have. So she doesn't have room for her own TMR, but it's all team buffs on there. You can slap it on someone else. They can use it on Esther for her, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore. So don't be afraid to put that on. That TMR is really good, by the way. It has 6 agility on it as well, so it's a great TMR. All right, time for the verdict. Should you pull for Esther? And I think that a lot of people should. I think that she's going to be a very useful unit for a long time for a lot of accounts. I don't think that she's on an Elena level, but I think that's a good thing. I actually appreciate that. Thank you, Gumi. I think she's very good in her niche in what she does, and I think that's why she'll see a lot of play. I've personally decided that I am going to be pulling for her, and like I said at the beginning, all the other content creators did it too, so there you go. You can be one of us. I think that if you are big on lightning, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to pull for Esther, because you might already be set. Cloud's already really good. You can mix him with other lightning units, and if you have Charlotte and everything, then you're fine. But at the same time, she's going to be a great partner for Cloud as well. So, and if you don't have Cloud, if you don't have Guard Scorpion, it's not a deal breaker. I don't have either of those things, and I'm still going to pull for her, and she's still going to be great. I think newer players can grab her. She'll be a useful unit for them as a pseudo tank while you're still building out your account, and also as your true damage dealer. But you might also just be better off grabbing Sala's right now while she's still on banner if you're starting out in War of the Visions, and then grabbing Alstoria in the future for some elemental cohesion. Otherwise, that's it for the video. I'm going to skedaddle now, but thank you so much for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe to support me and the channel. And by the way, I'm going to be pulling for Esther on stream later on tonight. So this video is going to come out on Wednesday at like, God, I hope by like 6:30 or something, and then I'll be on within the hour pulling for her. So if you see this, keep an eye out. I'll try to put a preview up for it, but otherwise I'll be on tonight pulling for Esther. Wish me luck.